So if anybody doesn't know me, I'm the vice president of the Mansfield-Johnson Amateur Radio Service. I also started the YL North Texas Weekly Net, net control operator for 3 nets on a weekly, I'm on the rotation, plus I sub for several different nets. I run the Burleson Emergency Operations Center, and if you ever get to know me, you'll find out that I'm a total goofball, and I'm fun to be around, but I'm a great worker. So, I think the first thing we have to do at this point is talk about what is a YL. I'm short, so I'm trying to move around so that everybody can see me. So YL came about in the 1920s when it was popular for old men to actually call each other old men. Hey, old man, that sort of thing. Well, you can't actually do that to a woman. You can't call her an old woman if you want to live. We had a lady whose name was Hedy Lamarr, who in 1920 actually submitted an article to QST on how to build a wireless station. And somebody from QST wrote her back and basically said, my dear YL, we will have to coin a new phrase for you, as you will readily see that OM will not fit and OL will certainly be inapplicable. So then it became YL. After that, we do have our own radio league, the YLRL. They came into existence in 1939, and in 1940, they set about trying to define what is a YL and what is an XYL. And officially the term is a YL, Steve knows where I'm going with this, this is crazy, it makes me crazy. A YL is any licensed female, whether they're married or unmarried. An XYL is an unlicensed female. So I know why it kind of got convoluted is because most wives are not licensed. So then it's an XYL. But once they become licensed, then they're YLs. So.
And there's no X's in Texas.
All my exes live in Texas. So again, I think we really need to go about maybe reframing what we think a YL is and what they look like. If y'all don't know who this is Hedy Lamarr. Absolutely one of the most gorgeous women you will ever run across, living or dead. She was just gorgeous. Austrian, was married to an Austrian arms dealer in World War II, was friends with Hitler, and she came to America and she was so pretty, of course, they put her in the movie industry. But what you don't know is that she was brilliant. The woman had her own lab. She had 2 patents. She invented spread spectrum and frequency hopping. That's hard to say. It was for torpedo guidance. So when they shot the torpedo off, it would hop frequencies so that somebody couldn't lock on, so they couldn't jam interference on it and misdirect their torpedo. Posthumously given a lot of awards, never really given credit, unfortunately. She was just brilliant, and I could do a whole presentation on her herself. So now that we've kind of displayed and got that out of the way, why would you want to attract women to your organization? Well, let's start out with the fact that we make up 52% of the population. If you take us out, that's a lot less people to choose from. Plus the fact that, it sounds like one of those things that you just say because it's cool. But diversity really is strength, right? It depends. If you come together with me, I have a completely different background than you do. And let's face it, we're wired differently. So a woman and a man will come together about an issue and you will get 2 totally different perspectives. That actually makes you stronger, as long as you're not married to them. Then it turns into so there's that. In general, women are organized, and we're talking about in general. Women are organized. We're worker bees. We're masters of event organization. Ever seen a woman organize a wedding or a party? We do events great. We're excellent multitaskers, and that probably comes down to why we're so good at doing events. We're people persons, for the most part, generally. And again, we bring a different perspective. We make groups cohesive. I think that we're kind of the glue sometimes that makes things come together. We attract other women. If you have a woman in your organization and another woman comes in, those women will gravitate to each other like you wouldn't believe. I walked into a room in 2015. I walked into the Mansfield-Johnson Amateur Radio Service Club meeting. In January of 2015, there was one other woman in the room. And God bless her, she came right for me after the meeting. And I suddenly felt welcome, because it's hard to be the only female in the room. Also, we make really good net control operators. So, I just made this list. I don't know if you can read it. Can y'all see it in the back?
No.
Or do I actually need to read it? Okay. Things that attract women, fun and laughter, as opposed to grumpy dicks. I don't know. Grumpiness. It's supposed to say grumpiness. That was a total Freudian slip. Activity. We love activities. If we're sitting in a room and there's nothing to do, we get kind of bored. We love seeing other women because, it's hard to be the only person and the other only female in the room. We love positive feedback as opposed to condensation. Condensation. The lips are not moving today. We love the social aspects of it, and it's interesting because women come into ham for the social aspects, and men kind of come into the ham for technical. And most women will sit there and tell you, "I'm not technical." I hear it over and over and over again. So we like being welcome, protected, included, and the biggest compliment that you can give a woman is to treat her like she's one of the group, because then she feels like she has friends, And it's not about being a woman or being a man. It's just about being with your friends. So, this is how I feel about it after watching it for about 6 years. Women tend to fall into 2 or 3 groups. One of them is they got into ham to be supportive because of a family member, whether it be a wife, a husband, or whatever. They may see the need for it, but a lot of them will say, it's not my thing because I'm not technical enough. That's immediately what they'll say. But you have to be sneaky with it. Some of them got into it because it was a bonding experience with an ex-boyfriend, and you wouldn't believe how terribly common that is. We did that topic one night on the net. How did you get into ham radio? A lot of them said, I had a boyfriend. Well, the boyfriend went away, and then they actually decided they liked it and they stayed. So that's another one. And then you have those women who are just unapologetic, straight-up nerds. And that's pretty uncommon, but it does happen. I just realized that if I went to this, you might actually be able to see it better. Why didn't y'all tell me? But you notice, we're all sitting around drinking beer and having popcorn. It's really not that different. We're just one of y'all. You just need to forget that we're women. Single women. And when I say single, in this case, you can be married or single. What I'm talking about are women who are not married, or perhaps women who are married who don't have husbands who are hams. And believe me, it actually does happen. And those are the ones that are your most valuable asset, because they came into the hobby because they were looking for a hobby, and they want to, they want to be active. They have lots of spare time. They're hard workers because they have lots of spare time, and again, they make amazing net control operators. But the downside of that is these are the type who struggle the most because they don't have people at home that are already hams. They don't have built-in shacks. They don't have built-in Elmers. And a lot of times they're single income, or they may have a disability. And that's one of the reasons why they wanted to get in the habit, was just to maybe open up their world, especially if they're homebound. And they're definitely the least likely to install their own shack. And even now, I've been a ham for 7 years, 7 years. I have done a ton of installs. I would never crawl around up on my roof and set up my own shack. Never. It just, so we do need a little extra help sometimes. What are women into? What are y'all into? Name it. It's basically the same thing. FT8, I hear FT8. I know a lot of women who are into CW. Mandy Erickson, I'm going to point her out right here. She falls into the category 1. She was a wife who wanted to be supportive for her husband, and then at some point or another, there was a major disaster, and she couldn't get a hold of Jim. So, of course, Jim, being Jim, said, maybe you should learn how to use that radio. And then from there, the YL net came on, and of course, she's one of my friends. So she got into the habit of checking in, and then the next thing you know, she's over the promo booth. She runs the calendar. You just have to find the right job for the right person. I think that's part of it. So how to Elmer a woman? It is different. Anybody have a wife that's a ham? Oh yeah. Would you actually try to Elmer your wife?
I'm not a ham.
Oh, you're not a ham. Okay, you're a single ham. I get it. Yeah, I get it. Well, I would just throw it out there for public consumption that perhaps you might not want to Elmer your own wife. Because there's a whole dynamic that goes in between being, with being married. You've already got this dichotomy set up where you're on an equal playing field. You need somebody to Elmer her where she obviously is in a position of, I don't know much and I want to know more and you know more, and there's no pull at all. That's what you need. So other than that, ideally you'd like to have women Elmer women and men Elmer men, but in a realistic world, that's not happening because we just don't have that many women to Elmer. If your wife were to decide that, she gets into ham and she really wants to be a ham and she goes and asks somebody else a question, please don't get your feelings hurt. It's really not about that. It's more about she can get an answer from this person without it being that pull, So break it into small bites because, again, most women will sit there and tell you, I'm not technical enough. So you have to break it into small bites, only give them what they need to get the job done for whatever they're doing. Teach, but don't enable. That means if you sit them down at an HF station to have them work, show them what the buttons do. Tell them what the buttons are for. If you're going to help them set up their radio, don't put it into chirp and load it for them. Sit there and teach them how to hand program their radio. That's teaching. You can give assignments. That's always fun. And again, avoid getting too technical. I love this picture of the bunny. It says, this picture, if you notice the head positions, it says this picture was taken before and after telling her that she could do anything she sets her mind to. And I was like, that's really cool. And then this was the other one I found. I love this. It was never meant to be a dress. It's a cape. So again, getting your wife involved is absolutely a good thing. There's a perfect example right there. If you use ham to escape your wife, they're going to resent it. If you bring them into the fold and let them do their thing, then it becomes more of a bonding experience. And hey, I don't know, maybe they might even suggest that you need new equipment or you need this radio. There's a thought. So you can justify the money. They never have to worry where you are or who you're with and what you're doing because they're there. Oh yeah. APRS is a whole funny story because I have actually heard a couple on the air with APRS, and she was going somewhere and he was monitoring her on APRS, and there was a whole fight that went on the air saying, you turned the wrong way. You know? And if anybody knows me, I'm like, it's attached or I wouldn't be able to find it. And so I hate APRS. There has been more than one bike ride where they have monitored my APRS speed and went, there she goes. So how to get your wife in? You got to be sneaky. Turn the YL net on, check in. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about the YL net later. It's not always women. We do half women in the beginning, and then we have a technical topic or a tech question or something to kind of draw a very distinctive line between the men and the women, and then we let the men check in. But it's always interesting to hear women's reactions when they hear other women on the air. I think the goat neck, a couple of years ago, we had 2 women net control operators, and we had a new ham. And he called his wife and said, turn the radio on, turn the radio on. And she sat and listened to the whole bike ride, and she was like, 2 women did net control. I mean, it was just, so you have to convince them for one thing that they're out there. Yep, introduce her to another YL so she has a chance to bond with somebody else. That's another good one. Any net that you find that has a YL net control operator, turn it on. Involving weather spotting, that's another one, because if you convince them that there's a use for it just besides chit-chatting on the radio, then they get a little bit more inspired, especially if they're afraid of, inclement weather. I know that's one of the things. And simplex is an overlooked thing, because I found that most men, women, whoever it is, most new hams suffer from mic fright. But if you put them on simplex and they suddenly get the idea that nobody's listening and you're on the other end, it helps, right? Because it's not like you're out there broadcasting to the world. You are, but don't tell them that. Be sneaky. All right, so a little bit about the YL net. I did bring some things for you up here. We have business cards. These are postcards that we've sent out. I ask that if you take a postcard, you will promise me that you will find another YL to hand this to. Take a picture of it yourself. Send me another thing you can do. My call sign, KG5BHY. You can send me a call sign for any woman that you want to, and I will personally write them a handwritten note to invite them to come participate. But anyway, we started the net in 2015. Originally, it was going to be a women's only net. And of course, as things go, the very first net we did, we had maybe 5 or 6 check-ins, 5 or 6 women check-ins. And of course, there had been this 3 months build up where we were trying to convince people that they needed to come check in. And then we had the first net. We had 5 or 6 check-ins, and we didn't really have a plan, and it was over like that. And we're like, well, we knew all the guys were there because all the husbands were in the background. So we went, you know what? Ask your husband to come check in. And we opened it up, and suddenly it just morphed into what it is today. It is a very distinctly for women. It is ladies first and gentlemen afterward, and we do try to keep people separated. I mean, the women are welcome to check in with the men, but we try to keep the men from, well, I hate to say taking over, but taking over. It is. We have 4 YL net control operators and have for years. We started in 2015, and in 2016, exactly 1 year later, we had 3 YL net control operators. And I don't know how long you've been in ham, but having 1 YL net control operator is kind of uncommon. But we've maintained 4 pretty consistently for a long time, and I actually have heard from another lady who's ready to take the leap, and we're going to have 5 pretty soon. So that's very cool. We try to concentrate on education, doing simplex nets after the net. Sometimes we'll hop over to a different simplex frequency and see how people operate in there, and of course do relays and that kind of training that keeps your skills sharp. And repeater hops. Anybody a quilter? I'm looking at her, anybody a quilter? Of course, it could be the men too. No? Okay. That came from a quilt, an old quilt term where they have a quilt shop hop. And what they'll do is they get in a bus at one quilt shop, and then they go to another quilt shop, and another quilt shop, and another quilt shop. Well, I had this idea after listening to, I think it was one of the Racy's nets. Well, they'll do basically the same thing. They go from repeater to repeater to repeater. And what we did was we had a full-on net, but before the net, like a couple days before, we took something out and we said, we're going to this repeater after the net. And of course, we had permission from the repeater owner, and we went to that repeater. And then the next month it was a different repeater. And then the next month it was a different repeater. Well, at the end of 6 months, instead of doing one at the end of everything, we had them go in a row, which means their radios had to be programmed. See, like how I did that? So you gotta be sneaky, and you gotta make it fun. And we even had somebody who didn't save the frequencies in their radio, and she didn't want any help either. She was like, I can do it. So she programmed it all by hand on the fly, and it was Amanda. Miss, ham's not my thing. She did it, So that's where we are today, and the fact is, it's a really fun net. Advice for women, you gotta carry yourself with the confidence of a girl holding a big old aisle. You gotta speak up, you gotta be persistent, you gotta have a thick skin, because let's face it, we're wired differently. Sometimes things get said and it's not exactly how you meant for it to come off. It's just that we think differently. We do. So have a little bit of a thick skin. Don't get discouraged because you're not technical enough. It's a lifelong hobby for everybody, not just you. And you'll get over that I'm not technical enough, because after a while you just kind of start soaking it in through osmosis. Find other women. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't say, we're there every week, people, holiday weeks and not. Check in on the YL net. You'll hear a lot of us. We usually have at least 10 YLs checking in, and we probably have about the same in the men. Our record, we hit it this year. In fact, we did a lot of direct mailing. We hit 24 check-ins, and we actually kept that going for a few weeks, so it's doing really well. Echolink has been an absolute game changer for us, because it's very hard to find. Okay, again, how many are in this room? We have the presenter, which is, I don't know that I count. We have 2 YLs in here, We're just not out there. So when you open it up to Echolink and anybody can come in from anywhere, we've got people checking in from Alaska and India and Georgia, Kentucky, Missouri, Australia. Who was the one that showed up on the Facebook page today? New Zealand? New Zealand? It's cool to hear a bunch of ladies coming in from everywhere because they want to be there. That's cool. Social media is a good way to do it. Hamfest. Go to Hamfest, shake hands with the women around there. I know that seems creepy, like you're picking up women, but I had to do it for 5 years. Walk around, oh, hey, are you YL? do it once or twice. Just shake hands. Remember that it's human nature to be afraid of change, and women do represent change, unfortunately, but it's the thing that's actually going to save the hobby. So, you know, we need to do it. And lastly, I call this the Mansfield-Johnson Amateur Radio Service and YLNet North Texas Weekly Net present, because this could not have happened without the backing of my club. I started in January of 2015, and I absolutely love the hobby. And by November, and I say we, the club had a lot to do with it, started the YLNet. And again, we haven't had a problem with net controls. We haven't had a problem with promo. We've done a lot of working Hamfest, handing out business cards, just being smarmy, kissing babies and shaking hands. That's what it's taken. We've done direct mailing. That was invaluable. Echolink has been invaluable. Announcing on other clubs' nets. We offer Elmering that's centered on the present need with YL specifically, so that it's what you need for the moment. It's not an overwhelming answer. It's just an answer enough to get you going. Financial assistance. That's another thing. We have, for some reason, we just have a lot of those single YLs who are not going to be able to get up on their roof and hang antennas and solder connections and do all that sort of thing. So because they're single, and a lot of them are single income, can't afford the equipment. We've done quite a few things with financial assistance for YLs, including tech teams. You cannot do anything if you don't have people behind you going, yes, we'll come out and help you set up that station. We have women in highly visible positions. It helps just to see others up there. We try to give a lot of positive feedback to anybody, especially new hams, but women too. And we're a very active club, so I think that's another thing that kind of keeps them in, because as soon as you can give them a job and give them a radio and have them go out and work a corner or whatever, the more of that they can get involved in, the more buy-in you have, and then suddenly you have a club member. So that's pretty much it. I have some links up here if you're interested in the YLNet. Any of this information that I brought with me has all the information for the net. There's information for NJARS and our nets, and also we run the DFW 220 net in addition to the training net. So if anybody's got 220, that's also a pretty popular net too. We're getting 22 check-ins every week on 220. Who thought it? But again, it's one of those things you have to start and keep going. So, where am I at?
40. Yes.
Huh? Questions? Comments? Anything? Oh, there's the peanut gallery.
Can I come up here and join you for a minute?
Yes, you can.
Hey, he has his own section. Don't let him take over.
First off, I don't want to steal her thunder. She did awesome. But she's a rock star. She really is. And I'm thinking of one other rock star in North Texas that's a young lady.
Ooh, Catherine?
Yes.
He's not here, is she?
So, no, she's not,
Oh,
unfortunately.
damn. Yeah,
But-
darn.
So, who does not know who Catherine Forson is? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I wish I had a picture of her.
Page 68 of the most recent QST is one of her many issues of QST that she has been adorned pages of.
How old is she?
With a photograph. Catherine is now 17 years old.
17. And she's our youth outreach. She's our youth outreach.
So, well, the first thing I did is your new section manager in 2019 was appointed Catherine as our youth coordinator for the ARRL North Texas section. Because when I first met her during my campaign trip, I was like, oh my gosh, blown away.
And that has to do with diversity, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about women, it's about youth and letting them do whatever it is that they
They're
want to
good
do,
at.
and
Right.
just kind of nurturing. And honestly, guys and ladies, we have, we're in one of those hobbies where we have got to ensure the success for future generations, and that's true.
Ham radio would be very boring if we were bouncing signals off the moon and hearing our echo.
Right.
And that was it.
Yeah.
In other words, not getting to talk or communicate with other people.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
and that's what makes it great.
Yeah.
And by the way, Catherine Forson is the first ever North Texas amateur radio operator to receive the Hiram Percy Maximum Memorial Youth Award.
She is a
That's
rock star.
pretty historic.
Yeah.
So
And she's in band, and she's
she's in band.
She's,
She is a National Honor Society member. She's a Spanish Honor Society member, two separate organizations. Band, and she carries 3.95 to 4.0 grade point average consistently. And she has received a full ride scholarship, not easy to obtain, to Texas A&M.
oh wow.
She starts next year.
Oh, she's a senior.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah, she's been around for
So,
four, 6,
I'm gonna flip
8
this on
years.
and walk over to
yeah,
you,
yeah.
hug.
No, but
Mhm.
it has absolutely everything to do
Yeah.
with just reframe,
So I would like everybody to give Allison a big clap.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Oh, yeah, Facebook. We do have a Facebook page for the YL North Texas Weekly Net. We also have a Facebook page for MJARS if you're not on it. Our web page, which Amanda Erickson maintains the calendar for, website has everything on it, including all the YL and TX stuff. So, anybody else? Yes. Oh, you first.
Does your card, your USL card, have this information as to the Echolink
Oh, yeah.
contacts and everything?
Everything on here is.
We've got 8
Yes.
ladies down in our area, Queen area,
Oh, okay.
Hoppers Cove and Temple,
Okay.
that are members of those 3 clubs.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You have All-Star on your reviews?
Or,
No, but we do have Echolink on a couple of them.
okay, yeah. Because there is I'm not technical. There is a way to get all that to
Kim
work.
handles that.
Yeah. That's the straight up nerd part. Yeah, I'll let them deal with it. But yes, we do. That's all on there.
So, for roping somebody who's not a licensed at XYL, how would we encourage them to start joining the nets and or find the group and work their way in, I guess?
Are you ever around them during a net time?
That could be.
Go be with them on a net time and just sit with them and listen to the net, and when you check in, you can say, I'd like to act as a third party, as a third party control station, or however it is. I know there's a couple of different ways you can look at that. I always get confused about control station, control operator, whatever. You can act as for third party traffic and let them check in, or you can just kind of get them used to hearing it. It kind of depends on the personality. Some people will check in immediately, no problem. Some people, they're going to need a little bit more, so, yep.
The other thing I had was, are there any YL nets on DMR or D-Star where they can communicate all over the world?
Michelle has that one.
Okay. If you will the email address is on there too. If you'll send me an email address, I can get you that information. The person who used to be the Section 5 YLRL had done a thing with all the different nets, all the different YL nets, and that D-Star stuff is on there as well. DMR. Start D something. We good?
Very well done.
I'm fairly sure this guy's gonna want to get his stuff up here, so.
Thanks,
Anyway,
Allison.
thank you for showing up. It's nice to see everybody.